Did you know that Devil May Cry was actually meant to be Resident Evil 4? However, the team made the decision that the general feel of the game didn't really fit into the survival horror genre. You're listening to the Xbox Hub Podcast, the official podcast of the TheXboxHub.com. For the latest Xbox news, reviews, videos, and opinions, make sure you visit the TheXboxHub.com. But for now, settle down, get comfy, and open your ears for some podcast delights. Hello and welcome to the Xbox Hub Official Podcast, episode number 80. My name's Gareth Briley, I'm going to be your host. And on my virtual left is Mr. Richard Dobson. How you doing, Richard?
Oh, hello. I'm on the left this week.
Yeah.
How you doing?
You very kindly filled in for James, who's not very well. Last minute addition. How you doing, Richard?
Oh, good. Thank you. How are you, Gareth?
Good, I'm very good. And on my virtual right is Mr. William Caruana. Have I said that right, Richard?
Well done.
William? I've done all right there, haven't I? Yeah. Do you know what? I didn't think about it, which is good. I went, oh my God, at the last second. That was fine. How you doing, William?
Nick and do, you know.
How's Canada? William's from Canada, from Toronto. If none of you have heard it before. How's it in Toronto?
It's lovely weather. Unfortunately, morale isn't the best right now. I mean, the COVID cases are starting to drop rapidly, but, you know, we're under a pretty heavy lockdown still. I mean, we can't go outside and communicate with anyone outside the household. It's pretty rough, but we're making do.
Okay. Richard, what's your week been like? What have you been doing?
I've had a bit of a topsy-turvy week this week. So, since probably February, I've been trying to complete, much like every other person that's been in lockdown over the past 12 months, I've been trying to complete a jigsaw puzzle.
Yep.
And this one is a Toy Story 4 jigsaw puzzle. So in the middle, you've got Buzz, Woody, Bo Peep, and Forky. And then around the edge is just simply hundreds of aliens, hundreds of green aliens. And it's been really, really tricky.
Good. Yeah. I can hear your pain, Richard.
Oh, well, it gets worse. It's referred to as an impossible puzzle. I finally managed to complete it. All the pieces were out of the box and on the table in the right place, but there was a piece missing.
Oh, no.
And I don't know where this piece is going. I checked the floor and everything, but because we have two house rabbits as well, I suspect one of them's had it and it's gone. So I've now been in touch with the makers of this jigsaw, and they're very kindly sending out a replacement jigsaw, which is really kind of them.
Oh, that's good.
Oh, wow. That's very nice.
On the other hand, I'm then going to have to sift through another 1,000 pieces to find this one piece that I need to finish it.
Oh.
What do you do when it's finished? Do you just hang it up somewhere, or do you just start again?
Yeah, I mean, because it's taken me this long, I refuse to be defeated by it. But I will take a picture and know that I'll be happy in myself that I've got all the pieces in there.
Wow. Are you a jigsaw fan, William?
I can't say I do a ton of jigsaws. My mum was doing them for a while.
Right.
That said, I do have my own perspective to share here. The Disney ones are brutal.
Wow.
Like, I knew exactly what Richard was getting at here, because we did one, I think it was for Captain Hook, and they had a million gold and purple frame pieces that looked the exact bloody same, all over the place, and it took a month. So,
wow. Wow. What else have you been doing this week, William? What fun things have you been up to?
Honestly, this week's been pretty quiet, all things considered. Most of what I've been doing we cover in our next section. But I did start Jupiter's Legacy this morning. I got a couple episodes in, and it's pretty okay.
So Jupiter's Legacy is the new Netflix show. It's a Mark Miller comic graphic novel,
Yeah.
and it's been adapted into how many 10 episodes is it? Jupiter's Legacy, or 8?
8.
8.
Yeah.
What's it about?
So basically, the idea is it's sort of Godfather 2 isn't the right. Actually, Godfather 2 is an apt comparison here. So it's sort of about this group of superheroes and their kids struggling to live up to the parents' legacy. And it's sort of told in a very postmodern way. So it keeps sort of going back and forth from, the story of modern day and these kids, for lack of a better phrase, they're in their 20s, struggling to make do and, how they have ideological differences with their parents. And then it tells the story of their parents and how they got their powers back in the Great Depression era. And yeah, it's pretty interesting.
Oh, okay. Okay, good. So it's worth me watching? I was thinking about starting next week.
Let me put it this way. I haven't fully committed to finishing it yet. I think the general rule of thumb is like the 3-episode challenge, if you will. Challenge isn't the right word,
Okay.
but they often say give it 3 episodes. Each episode's only about 40 minutes, so I think I'm going to stick with it.
Okay,
Yeah.
Good. I'll give it a go. I, this week, going straight into gaming, really. I've been watching the preview pieces for the new Ratchet and Clank
Oh my.
PS5 thing, and it looks great, doesn't it? I mean, what's quite nice about it looks better than the trailers a year ago, which is unusual sometimes with that, isn't it? When you see a trailer, normally that's when the best it looks, but this looks better now. So I've went back and because I never finished the remake for the PS4 that came out. So I had to start again because it's on the PS5, so I had to really start again. But I wasn't that far in. But I'm playing it again. I'm really enjoying myself. Just getting ready for that when it comes on June the 11th. It's a good game.
I beat that like 2 weeks ago. It's good.
Yeah, it's good. I mean, this new one looks great, doesn't it? It's going to be really interesting.
Yeah.
It does.
We're really excited. So yeah, that's what I've been doing. Going back, it's quite nice. It feels quite a little bit clunky, but it's good.
Can you notice the difference playing it on the PS5 as opposed to the PS4? I think it's supposed to have had a bit of an upgrade.
Yeah, I mean, everything looks shinier, and I've got a fancy new TV now, so everything looks mad, so colour-wise. So I'm not sure if it's the TV or it's the PS5, but yeah, it has that. Yeah, it looked good before. I remember it looking great on the PS4. Just the level of detail in the background and stuff. That's going to be what the new one looks amazing. What they can just do in the background. Seeing Ratchet flying through the air and then landing on this ship from afar was just like, wow. Games.
Yeah,
Sorry,
I can chime in on. Sorry.
Go on.
I can chime in on that quickly, Richard. They have bumped up the frame rate substantially from 30 to 60, and that was the big difference for me. I started it the first time, and I found it very slow and sluggish at 30, and it feels really good at 60.
Right.
There you go.
Yeah.
Got professional in there. I just like pretty colours.
I direct all my future questions to William.
It's always the best thing to do. Anything to do with games. Right, let's talk about games. What have you been playing? I'm going to start with you, William. What's your first one?
So the first one I did, I played Hood, Outlaws and Legends. I hope I got the title right there, which is the new game from Sumo Newcastle, which is one of the newer additions to the Sumo group. They did, Crackdown 3, Sackboy, Hotshot Racing, and this is sort of a player versus environment game, sort of in the vein of Hunt Showdown from Crytek, and your goal is to do a heist from start to finish. You have 4 classes, everything else. It's good fun. I gave it a 3.5. The only problem is it starts to get stale after a while, and the matchmaking has a lot of problems. But yeah.
So, is it? So, did you play with? Because obviously you had a review code before it came out. Did you play?
Yes.
Did you get games with players, or was it kind of bots you were playing with?
I got games with players, but the thing is, they don't seem to have a bot system unless someone leaves at the last minute. So, for example, they have a tutorial mode, and that one has the bots. But then when you try and do their PvE training mode, you have to do it on your own. There's no bots.
Okay.
So I did play with players. The only thing is, the matchmaking is quite flawed, let's say.
Right.
So sometimes when I was level 5, I was being matched against people level 70. And you unlock abilities as you level up, so it wasn't necessarily balanced and fair. And the worst thing about it was matches sometimes. I think the longest was 13 minutes to get into a match.
Okay.
So, yeah, they've got some work to do. Yeah.
Do you think it feels like it does look good for it? Just feels like, is it one of those games that's just going to get lost? And you know, there's kind of like PvE. I just don't know how. I think there's only and now I'm talking a bit rubbish here, but I think there's only a very small market for those types of games, and I think Overwatch got the market on console.
Well, I think the fact that it's player versus environment does help it. That is a sort of niche that you don't see a ton of. I mean, I guess the closest comparators would be Hunt Showdown, and I think State of Decay has something similar, so that helps. I think it's really hard to say how this one's going to play out because it's a games as a service, and it's still got a way to go. So, like the aforementioned State of Decay and Sea of Thieves, they really turn things around and turn those into fantastic games with vibrant communities, and people love them and people play them all the time. But then you have something like Bleeding Edge, which I adored. I gave that 4.5, and I still stand by that. But Bleeding Edge, it sort of died off after a couple months, and Anthem, of course, even Avengers seems to be having difficulties getting its player base back.
Yeah.
So there is absolutely, this could either die off really fast or it could end up being a sleeper hit. It sold well on Steam for the past week, but going up against Resident Evil 8 is not a good idea.
And it's sort of getting 3.5s and 3s generally.
Yeah,
from
I
around
think
above.
like 65, 64 on Open and Metacritic, something like that. Yeah.
Okay.
But that's a good starting point, I think, because I remember, like, say, some of those other games that have come out very similar all started off with fair to middling reviews, really.
Yeah, I mean, Sea of Thieves has a 68, and you ask most anyone who plays Sea of Thieves these days, that's not a 68 game. That's a lot.
I think Sea of Thieves had that kind of like, I've got to try this wow factor. Rather than something like this, maybe you just go, I'm not sure about this. Maybe it's a Game Pass game. I'd like to
that's it.
Yeah, if this was Game Pass, I think it would have done better.
Yeah.
And then as well, Sea of Thieves, as you mentioned, there was the WoW factor, and I wasn't in the Xbox ecosystem at the time, but I can tell you, looking from the outside in, there was a lot of hype in the Nintendo community as well for that one, because this sort of Rareware's first new game in eons, that was not a Kinect game. I think the last one would have been, Banjo?
Nuts and
Bolts. So 10 years right there. So there was obviously a lot of hype going into that because of the pedigree of that team. And I think that helped as well.
Yeah.
I think that also may have played a part in why the scores were lower at the start. But yeah.
Good. Richard, what have you been playing?
I've been playing a game that I'm also reviewing as well. It's called Flowing Lights, which is like an arcade shooter from top to bottom. But it has this really, really unique mechanic about it that you're trying to solve puzzles at the same time. So if you've got an enemy set up, then there's a way to shoot them in which order, and at which time as well. Timing's important, and then you need to figure out the levels this way. And it really gives something different to a genre of games that's been around since year dot, basically. Really lets the player think about what they're doing in advance, so you can sort of see the setup beforehand, and you can see if the enemies are moving and which way they're shooting. Sometimes they'll target just you, sometimes they'll target an area and just constantly pepper that area.
Okay.
So you can see it well in advance, and you know how to prepare for stuff like that. And then it gives you like a trial and error situation. So if you die, you can instantly retry and stuff. And I've been quite impressed by it. I wasn't expecting much when I saw the trailer. It looked a bit basic, but I've really warmed to the art style as well and the gameplay. I've been really surprised by this.
The art style's got that kind of Tron feel to it.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
At first, I thought it just looked a bit drab and a bit basic, but no, after playing with it and seeing it a lot more, I really appreciate that now as well.
Yeah. Oh, good. What are you going to give it?
I'm probably going to give it 4 stars, actually.
Oh.
It's been it's been really enjoyable, and there's a lot to go at as well, and it does get really hard towards the end. So I think it's split into 10 different areas that are all themed, and then towards the end of these areas, the levels do get really rather tricky. There was one that I did yesterday, and it just threw a right curveball at me. So there was these gas bubbles that sort of stop your firing, and you need to figure out how to get around them, basically. But then this last level just presented it as like a platforming section, so you needed to zoom up the side of the cliffs that sort of keep the level enclosed. And there was all these platforms, and you needed to figure out how to shoot. And I was just like, the level design is really, really good.
Oh, good. Good. That sounds good, Richard. I like the look and sound of that. Sorry, William, you going to say something?
No, I just said great.
Great. Good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Talking about great, I've been playing Resident Evil Village, or Resident Evil 8. Won't give away any spoilers, but I think it's great. I think it's a brilliant game. Really, really good game. And I'm a Resident Evil. I've played them all, but I'm never that worried about the kind of story that much. You know, I kind of just like walking around the environments. I really enjoyed the Resident Evil 7. It follows on from that with the same character, the same hero of that in first person, and we've always seen where you kind of go. Ends up in this kind of village, which is a homage to Resident Evil 4, with some of the same kind of characters that come back. I think I can't even remember Resident Evil 4 that much. And of course, we've seen the vampire big lady. She's in it, but there's loads more kind of villains and loads more sorts of set pieces. It looks fantastic, I think, especially on Series X, and certain environments, everything just looks good. The detail of like the set pieces, but also just the small details of like ornaments or like tables or like things you might find in the interiors. Of course, the creatures are brilliant. It plays fantastic. It's my favourite one so far. Even over 7, because I thought 7 was brilliant for the first half. Then there was a whole section in 7 on a boat that I just lost interest in. And this, even though some of the reviews have said, you know, towards the end it isn't, but I actually really enjoyed the end of this. I thought it was great all the way through. I thought the boss battles were brilliant. I thought it was, really, and I really was into the story this time. Really into it. I thought, I'm really getting this. And it's really good. Really, really good. I'd recommend, especially any Resident Evil fans, definitely get it. If any people are curious and not played Resident Evil, give this a go. It's a good showcase. Yeah, I'm enjoying it. Very good.
Good.
Richard, you got it to play?
I have. I need to get around to it.
Get around to it. I think you enjoy it. And it's short. It's not that big. It's not that long. It's going to be, I don't know, 8 hours or something.
I keep seeing the odd little spoiler of some of the enemies and some of the people that you run into, and I'm like, I really need to get around to it.
Yeah.
But yeah, sooner rather than later.
Definitely. William, what other games have you been playing?
For me, after I beat Hood, I was in a sort of weird position that I was trying out games, for lack of a better phrase, you know. So I played a bit of Infamous Second Son, and I really wasn't feeling that one, which was surprising because I really loved Sucker Punch's game after Ghost of Tsushima. You know, I tried some other stuff, and then, for lack of a better phrase, I've just sort of fallen into what I like to call comfort food gaming right now. I'm just playing stuff that I know and I like. So a lot of Forza Horizon 4, and then also I'm doing another playthrough of Dishonored 2. I loved that game with Emily Caldwin, but this time I'm doing Corvo's story, so I'm seeing some of the differences there. It's a really great game.
It's a really good game, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you played Dishonored 2, Richard?
I played most of the first one, and then the game cheated me by saying that I'd caused a death, even when I was going for a deathless run, and I refused to ever go back on it again.
Oh no!
Wow. So it's bad memories for you.
I mean, up to that point, I was loving it, but yeah, it just really, really annoyed me because I was so careful.
And what was the death? What happened?
I remember at the end of each level, it sort of gave you an overview of what had happened.
Yeah, it does.
And it just said that there was a death, but it didn't tell me where or what it was. So I was like, no, there's not. There hasn't been. And then it got promptly deleted.
I think I played that game. I was just killing everything. And everything, there was rats everywhere, isn't it? Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can play high chaos, as they call it, but you get the bad ending.
Yeah.
I tend to play low chaos for the good one. The funny thing is, though, to your point about accidental deaths, I do not do deathless, but I do low chaos. So I play almost entirely non-lethal.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But the funny thing is, you know, you can grab someone and put them into a sort of chokehold and take them out harmlessly, so this will just put them to sleep. And so a couple times in combat, you'll have to do that if you caught. So I'm putting someone in a chokehold, and a few times some other guy will just hit them or shoot them and then go, "You killed them." I'm like, you're the one who shot at him with the gun. It's not my fault.
I think at the moment there's a documentary, a little hour documentary about the making of Dishonored 1 and 2 online.
There is.
Yeah. Worth a look.
And you see that.
Yeah. Good. Dishonored 2. Richard, what's your second game?
I guess then similar to what William was saying, that I've just been playing. It only came out a few weeks ago, but I've been playing new Pokemon Snap as a way to wind down on an evening. Conversely to Flowing Lights, that demands attention and patience. No new Pokemon Snap I can just turn on because then chill out with before I go to bed. So it's on rails. So you go around these locations just basically taking pictures of Pokemon, and it's the most relaxing thing, and it's perfect to wind down with on an evening.
Wow. Okay.
I'm really enjoying that.
Good. What's it on?
That is on the Nintendo Switch.
Ah, yeah. Okay.
And if you've got a Switch, because I only have a Switch Lite as well.
Right.
So sometimes I'll play it sat down, or if I'm in a chair. But if I'm sat in my computer chair like I am now, obviously that swivels round and it uses the motion controls.
Okay.
So I'm just winging myself around the room, taking pictures of Pokemon on a little screen. But yeah, I'm having a blast with it.
Good. Very nice. The next one we've got here is I'm doing, which is Subnautica Below Zero, which I've had now for over a week, I think, and I'm doing my review this weekend, and it's been out. I think it came out on Tuesday, maybe, or maybe the embargo's. Oh no, it's not out yet. It's out tomorrow, but the embargo's definitely gone. Thank God. Before I say anything else, it's out tomorrow. Now I never played Subnautica. I never really did it at all. So why I reviewed it, God only knows. I don't think anyone else went in for it of our team, and I really love it. It's really interesting because the moment you play it, you start up and there's a story there, and the story is, I think, connected to the first. You're kind of on this ice planet and you're kind of running away from a meteor, and then you go underground, and then you're go under the water, and then you're in a little base, and that's all you know. So if you just like me, you're new to the whole thing, you're there and you go, right, and there's no real instructions about what to do next. And so if I was playing it and it was on Game Pass and I switched it on and did that and I was like looking at it, I'll go, nah, I'll move on to something else. But because I'm reviewing it, you have to sort of do the work and have to kind of work out what's going on. And then when you get into it, which is very much like the, survival crafting, No Man's Sky has got me that. It's basically you're pitting kind of like formulas of things, like you'd have to go and collect some objects to make some fins so you can swim faster, you need a compass or a scanner that you can scan items with, and then you gradually start to get bits of the story that might give you a hint that there's something over here to explore. Then you go over there, you find some more bits. Now, when I'm saying this, I've described to you 6 hours have passed for that bit I've described to you of me swimming around trying to build stuff, and then before I've gone on to the next bit of story. So the game's huge, and by the end of this game, as we can see from the first one, people are building underwater stations by scanning blueprints, getting more information, building huge ships for them to swim around with. And it's one of those games you can do the story. I think the story would take you, you get to a point when you have to get to a point in the story when you obviously have to build more sophisticated equipment to go deeper underwater. So you can't just kind of run through the story quickly. You've got to build. But I think after you've done the story, it's an open world for people to have fun with and explore, and that's what's happened with the first one. There's loads of people still there, still playing it, enjoying it. And there's a couple of modes. You can do the first mode, which is survival completely, where you have to get food and water, and then there's a kind of the story mode. You'd have to worry about food and water, and then there's just a kind of creative mode where everything's unlocked and you can just have fun there. Yeah, it's great. It's really good. It's a really lovely environment to be in. They design it beautifully. It's been in preview for a while, so it's not hugely buggy. There's a couple of little jolts, but nothing major. It feels very polished, and the story's interesting, and the world's interesting. The voiceover work is great from the characters. Yeah, I'm enjoying it. But I think if I did it, it's quite it assumes that you know stuff. That makes sense.
Yeah, I find that with most survival games.
Yeah, but it's lovely. Yeah, it's great. Really good. I think I might give it. It's going to be quite high, 4 definitely. But I'll see this weekend. Yeah, good. Now the other game I'm playing at the moment, but I'll talk about more next week, is Assassin's Creed new DLC. Came out today, and it takes you to Ireland for Valhalla, and that's what I've started today. I'll talk about that more next week. But I've just done the Let's Play for it. Let's do some news. Coalition made an announcement. William, what did they say?
So the Coalition has announced that they have moved development on to Unreal Engine 5 now. They are starting to sunset Gears 5, for lack of a better phrase. They're doing 2 more operations. They'll keep it live after there, but that's sort of the last bit of new content for that. And now they're going to start working on multiple projects. Now, one of those, obviously, Gears 6. The other one, however, is interesting because it might be a new IP. From what Jeff Grubb has been saying, it's something a bit smaller, so maybe think like Ninja Theory's Project Mara, if you remember that one, which is a small little horror game that they were doing to test out some of their graphical abilities for Hellblade 2.
Was that the one with the carpet that you mentioned, Gareth?
Oh, yeah.
So that one, yeah. The stairs and the carpet.
Yeah, that does ring a bell. Yeah,
that one in the apartment. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, that's the one I'm thinking of.
So yeah, I think it's really good to see them starting to step out of their comfort zone a bit. I really think they are a very talented team. But as well, one of the things I'm very happy about with Xbox is they've got 23 studios and counting. They're still buying more. They have all of these exciting new projects coming from third parties, which means now Gears and Halo After Infinite no longer have to carry the weight, so to speak. You know, they don't have to be these massive AAA, ones that have to come out on a regular click. And so this allows for more experimentation, and it allows for a longer dev cycle. That means more ambition, hopefully less crunch. And yeah, I'm very excited to see what the Coalition does next. Gears 5 was great. Gears 4 was even better, I think. And 6 is going to be awesome.
Now, Unreal Engine 5 is the PlayStation demoed it, didn't it? The game that wasn't a game.
Yeah.
That everyone wanted to be a game.
That was a game.
Yeah, that we saw last year. Yeah, so that's really exciting. It's really exciting to see. I mean, it's interesting at the moment is, we're getting a sense of like, there was a tweet this week from PlayStation, again, one of the execs talking about, from Xbox, sorry, one of the execs talking about how, they've got some very exciting announcements coming up, which obviously is hopefully for E3 in June. And some things are going to blow us away. I think it has been a slow year, as we've talked about before, because of COVID, because of restrictions. So you haven't had these huge games, but I think hints of what's to come, graphically as well, and just with the games is really exciting. Which takes us well to the other side, to PlayStation, who announced this week they've got 25 games in development at this moment, and half of them are new IPs. And you said as well, William, didn't you? Xbox have got about 44 in development at the moment.
Xbox has 23 teams plus, including global publishing. So that's partnerships like Asobo and Dontnod, and another one that's been heavily rumored. And so, current estimates put their output at anywhere between 43 and 45 games, which is amazing. And this 25 through PlayStation is nothing to scoff at either. When you take into account they have about half the first party capabilities, so it's going to be very exciting.
It's interesting at the moment because I just playing in the last couple of weeks Returnal and then going into Resident Evil, and with Returnal really seeing what that PlayStation can do, at the start of its cycle, and that was great. Really interesting to play just on the fact of the kind of like what you're seeing on the screen. They're kind of like, and even with Resident Evil, it feels so much less blocky. It feels so continuous all the time. I sort of still remember Resident Evil kind of going into the rooms and there's loading screens or there's things open up. It just feels a bit more, much more fluid, and just visually it just looks amazing. So it makes me exciting because I'm all about visuals. Just make pretty things to look at. It's the fighting and stuff that gets in the way. I'm just quite happy just to walk around. Yeah, it's exciting times, I think. Do you think
the fact that
Sorry, William, please go on.
Sorry, I'm quite bad about overlapping. The fact that half of these are new IP is really exciting as well. There was an interview that Jim Ryan did last year, and he said, new IP's this risk, we're going to be looking away from that. But they seem to have changed their tune on that and are doing a bunch of new IPs. So we know one's coming from Jade Raymond, one's coming from the Bungie devs, Naughty Dog's crafting new IP right now, Sony Santa Monica, Bend. Last gen was fantastic for new IP for PlayStation.
Yeah.
Horizon, Ghost of Tsushima, even Spider-Man, well, not a new IP, so to speak, it was new to Insomniac and to PlayStation. So,
but what I think it works for those, especially with Ghost of Tsushima. It's like, what? One of the big things it worked for, it came out in August. So it came out in August when there's no other that many games around as well, which really helps because people are hungry for new games, so they buy it, and that's one of the biggest things. It's, we've talked about it a little bit more here. It's when you pack October and November full of games.
Yes.
And you've got new IPs in the middle of that, which has happened before, they get lost. and it hasn't got the power they have. We don't, we talked about this before, but we don't live in this world now where people only buy games at Christmas and people don't buy games in the summer holidays. People do buy games in the summer holidays. It's a different world from 1997 when all this was set up, when it was maybe aimed toward buying games for kids. It was, this time it's, everyone plays games. Yeah. So when that kind of buying market, that's what they need to do, spread it out through the year, which I think they've started to do.
And it's not even a buying market, so to speak, anymore. Game Pass has quite literally changed the game. It doesn't make a ton of... I think we're going to have a crowded holiday this year just so they can shut up the narrative of no games and all that.
Yeah.
But if you take a look, going forward, it makes far more sense to have one in February and one in April and one in July and all that, and then a big one at Christmas, because you want people subscribed month over month. If you just throw all this stuff at them at once and it falls under the radar, then they're just going to sit back and go, why am I subscribed to this?
Yeah, exactly.
So,
we got some news this week about the Battlefield 6, which is basically saying, there was a tweet saying the kind of reveal is going to be in June. I think the tweet was from like June Boom or something. I don't know what it was.
Rhymes with soon.
June Soon, yeah. But they've confirmed that it's going to be cross-gen now, so it's going to be Xbox One as well as Series X and PlayStation 4 and 5. Because the big rumour was that it was going to be just on the new consoles.
Are we assuming that means it's coming out at the end of this year then? Because I don't think if it was going to be cross-gen, they'd want to put it out next year.
Yeah, I think they've said in their financials this game will release October to December.
Right.
So it feels like it's there, but it's going to be their big one. You're right. I think cross-gen will be next year. Maybe it'd just be FIFA. No.
FIFA will still be releasing on the 360.
Yeah. But maybe that will start to stop. I mean, we're talking about, we've said this before, but you're talking about Microsoft Flight Simulator. That's coming out this summer still.
Yeah, it does.
That's only on the Series X, isn't it?
Yeah, and in fairness, that if they can get that running on the Xbox One, that is a modern day miracle. Because this thing throttles PCs. The thing puts my PC, which is probably at about 70% of the Series X specs, it brings it to its bloody knees at points. So imagining that on the One scares me.
Yeah.
It's going to have to be a whole hard drive and nothing else if it was on the One.
Yeah.
It's going to have to be Crackdown 3 style, and they're going to need all the bloody cloud for the whole thing.
The EA also said they're going to be doing their EA Play on July 22nd, which they do their showcase, which we did last year on the podcast, which I can't even remember what games they had on there last year. Can you remember?
Last year they had Skate 4. They announced that. They had a look at Dragon Age. Look at that. What else? They announced a bunch of Switch ports, and then they showed off Motive's game that ended up cancelled.
And the Rocket game, Rocket.
Greg Miller was there. He hosted.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. So they've got another one of those. So, what do we think is going to be on there? It'll be a sports, of course, sort of sports montage.
Sports.
Battlefield.
Yeah, more Battlefield after the reveal in June.
Yeah.
I think the reveal might just be a short trailer, and then the EA Play will have a more in-depth thing about it.
Yeah. Dragon Age.
Star Wars, probably.
Oh, Star Wars, yeah. Yeah. Dragon Age, is that, that's a few years away, isn't it?
I don't know.
Oh.
Well, because it got announced a few years ago now. I'd hazard a guess at next year.
Okay, right.
Yeah, next... It is BioWare. Anthem was cancelled, which means they have more resources for that, but they've been going through a transitional period, to put it nicely. A lot of people have left and moved and everything else, so I think Dragon Age is 23, if I'm being honest.
Okay.
I'm more than happy if I'm wrong.
Right.
We'll see what BioWare have been up to tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, there's a thing that I just was quite interested in, E3, which we know is coming up. And we'll be doing some, hopefully we're getting together a little idea about, we might do some daily podcasts, or every 2 days, or whatever we can work out. Straight after the events, we might do something live. We're in discussions. But E3 themselves have got an online portal and app that they're developing that you can download for free. And I think the idea behind it is that you can sort of experience like you're at E3 when you can go up to certain games, almost like going up to the stores and having a look at them individually rather than just watching the video announcements. Did you ever look at this? Did you see this? Am I right?
Yeah.
Is this what Devolver did? Is it Devolver? Did they do? They released a game last year that was essentially their booth for E3.
Right.
Yeah, Devolver Land or something.
Something like that, yeah. So you could walk around. I think it was on Steam, and they said they pitched it as a game, but it was like an interactive booth with all their upcoming releases, I believe.
Wow.
Sounds similar to that, anyway.
I mean, it shows a kind of commitment for them to do. I just don't know whether some of these people will think, do we need to go back to doing a live thing again? Should we just do it online now? These events, it's cheaper.
That is true.
Yeah, it's going to be a hard one. I think some of these people, I don't know. Maybe it's fine. Maybe they all want the events, but yeah,
I'd like
interesting
smaller ones.
Yeah.
I don't think I would never have the intention to go into E3. But the ones that they have in London, the EGX, Resd as well.
Yeah.
They're something similar in size to those would be more appealing. But yeah, not wanting there to ever step foot in E3.
No. We'll be there next year live outside.
As long as we're outside.
Just quickly going through some other bits and bobs. New Dungeons and Dragons. Is Dungeons and Dragons coming to Game Pass? Is this the one that's coming out in June, or have I made this
up? Yes. Yeah, they just announced it like an hour before this.
Wow.
Yep, day one.
And is that a kind of Diablo kind of feel to it? Sort of dungeon crawler? Well, it's Dungeons and Dragons. Or is it kind of? I'm not seeing anything about this game. Tell me about this game. Does it look exciting? Should I be excited by this?
I haven't seen much about it.
None of us know about it.
It's a hack and slash. It's a Canadian developer. It's got RPG elements. It's co-op, so that's pretty good for Game Pass. We were talking earlier with Hood about getting people playing. So, but ultimately, I think the big thing for this one is it's a big game. It's a big intellectual property, and it's just another step by Xbox to make their place the place for RPGs. So,
yeah.
Cool.
Skull and Bones has been delayed again. We don't want to laugh. I'm sorry, Skull and Bones. It's James's is his favourite game. He's been after this game for years. What's going on with that? What is going on with that? When's it been delayed to? 2023?
Yes.
I think it has, isn't it?
2023.
I mean, that's a I think they must have built it again from scratch, haven't they?
Yeah, they've done a soft reboot.
Right.
This is Ubisoft again, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
They delayed a lot of stuff scheduled for the start of this year, didn't they? Far Cry 6, the Prince of Persia remake, and they're still supposed to be working on Beyond Good and Evil 2.
I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
I can tell you this. There was one of the producers for Sea of Thieves. He shared a picture, and it was just him grimacing outside the Skull and Bones booth, and he just posted this to celebrate this. because for years, it was always the hardcore console warriors, the PC master race, the as they call themselves. I hate that name. And the very hardcore PlayStation fans saying, Skull and Bones is going to kill Sea of Thieves. Why would you play Sea of Thieves? Skull and Bones is going to be so much better. Just you wait for Skull and Bones. Sea of Thieves is going to die right then. Well,
Yeah.
well, maybe come 2023, Sea of Thieves needs to be afraid. But
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? How the kind of that game. It's just I feeling that game's not going to come out. Just got this feeling. I think it's going to be one of those games that we're going to talk about and go, I wonder if it ever how far it got. Maybe clips of it. It's hard, isn't it? Because I think the thing about Sea of Thieves that makes it kind of exciting is people also being on a boat and having fun and shooting people out of cannons and then going to an island, and it's all quite tongue in cheek, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
The thing about just doing sort of like naval battles, it's tricky, isn't it? On its own, I don't know how exciting that is. Assassin's Creed do it really well, and they have done it, but it's part of a bigger game.
Serious pirating, it might be.
Serious pirating.
Yeah, we'll see.
No shooting a guy out of a cannon onto another guy's ship and then having him play a Ride of the Valkyries on the hooty-goody here.
Yeah, some of that as well. Now, William, you've got a little note here about the Xbox I/O Interactive, and you put in here for me to say, please warn the listeners. A spoiler. Tell me all about this. Spoiler coming up.
Spoiler coming up. If you don't want to know what Xbox is working on, you want to save this for future E3, please do. But Xbox has 4 publishing games in production right now. This is according to Jez Corden, Jeffrey Grubb, Tom Warren, so very legitimate sources with great track records. And the big one that we know the most about is coming from IO Interactive. These guys did Hitman, they did Kane and Lynch, they're working on a Bond game, but they have been growing rapidly. They have 3 studios now, and they want to make an RPG. Now, what we know about this RPG, it's codenamed Dragon. It's a sort of multiplayer RPG, but non-MMO. So it's closer to like Diablo or Fable, not so much Fable, but more Diablo with co-op and a big sort of connected world. It's again like Diablo, but from a third-person perspective. And they have been hiring up for this, and now they've got one of the lead designers from the Witcher games on this game. So this has the potential to be one of the big exclusives. Now, we're talking something that's 3, 4, maybe even 5 years away, but it's still something worth watching,
Okay, good. I like the fact that lots of people are moving around different companies from other teams. Like being sort of pitched here, like someone from the Steam is going over to this work with this company. It's a lot kind of moving around, which is normal. But it's interesting. Now it's coming up to it is 6 months since the Xbox Series X got released. It's the first 6 months of it in November. How do you think it's done so far? What's the positives of it so far, and what's the kind of negatives? I know what we're going to say, but we've all got one, of course.
Look at mine right now.
Yeah. Do we, as a thing, do we like it? Do we like it as a bit of hardware, first of all? Would it?
As a bit of hardware, it's brilliant. It's even comparing it to the PS5 right now, it's so much more compact. It's really brilliantly designed in pretty much every regard. It's got a ton of power under the hood. It's made carbon neutral, I believe. It makes no noise whatsoever. It's just a wonderful piece of hardware. It's so fast, and I'm playing games at 60 frames per second, and I love this thing. And that's before we even get into stuff like their backwards compatibility program and FPS boost and auto HDR. Like, as a gaming box alone, I think it's the best one I've ever owned. I mean this genuinely. It's phenomenal.
Wow. There you go. Richard, follow that.
I mean, I could listen to William all day. No, I fully agree. And definitely in terms of Xbox consoles, it's by far the best one I've ever owned. I have it tucked behind the TV because it is slightly bulky to fit in any of the gaps that I have in my TV unit. But I wish I would have that one on show as opposed to the PS5 because it's just night and day in terms of how much I prefer the Series X over the look of the PS5 and the sound. Every time I turn that on, it sounds like it's taking off.
Your PS5?
Yeah.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? It's a disc, isn't it?
We all do, right?
All it's doing at the moment, we're using it as a glorified Blu-ray player. I think the Blu-ray player on the PS5 is better than the Xbox one.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the Blu-ray player is louder. The disc will spin every hour, so if you're just playing a game, but yeah.
Which it times it well in terms of Game of Thrones episodes being about an hour long, so the fan doesn't intrude too much during them. But yeah, I much prefer the Series X over the PS5 for the time being, other than the only obvious thing that we're going to discuss now, I assume.
Yeah, games.
Yeah.
So that's the next one. Let's chat about games. Xbox for games. What have we had? What's been impressive? What's been lacking? We've had on exclusives on the Xbox Series X, not exclusive, or just on that console. The Medium.
Yep.
What else?
Judgment, and that's
Judgment.
it, I believe.
The exclusives, we had Yakuza 7 for 3 months as an exclusive.
Yeah. That did release on the PS4 at the same time.
Yeah, we have Gears Tactics that was cross-gen. There were a couple exclusives, Falconeer and Call of the Sea, and Enlisted. They've all gone to PlayStation now. Medium's probably going in a month or two. So, look, I mean, the old joke that they always say is Xbox has no games. That is patently false. We know that they're working on 45 of them right now. But when it comes to launch, it really seems like they put all their cards on Halo, and I think that was a mistake. Hindsight is always 20/20, but when they had 4 games coming out last August, they had Grounded. They have 5. They have Grounded, Flight Sim, Battletoads. They had Tell Me Why. They had Wasteland 3. They could have saved 1 or 2 of those for the launch in retrospect. I get it. Halo is massive. It would cannibalize everything. But the problem is that it's also a house of cards that they built their whole first year off of. And so, I think they've done a good job of trying to fill in the gaps in the meantime. Let me put it this way. Had Halo come out, I don't think we would have gone things like MLB The Show or Outriders Day 1 on Game Pass.
Yeah.
So it's really nice that we got those. Yeah. And ultimately, we just want a good Halo game. So they made the right
call. I know. I think they've made. I think Game Pass has been great all the way through.
The first 6 months a bit dry. I mean, in fairness, PS5 has had its dry spells as well, but it's been a lot more consistent and it was stronger out of the gate through software.
Yeah, I mean, I think with PS5 you've had, on launch you had Demon's Souls, you had Spider-Man, you had Sackboy, that's called Little Big Planet, and then you had kind of Returnal, didn't you, April, there's maybe another one have I missed another one there?
Destruction All-Stars.
Oh, yeah.
Richard,
sorry.
PS5 is doing, though, that makes it good for me as someone that's primarily an Xbox gamer is the PlayStation Plus games offerings that they do each month are really, really good. So I think you get in 1 or 2 PS4 games and a PS5 game each month for the time being.
And the PS Plus collection as well, as someone who missed out PS4 gen, that's been great. I mean, Game Pass is still undisputably the best value in gaming, but PS Plus Collection has been awesome. I played God of War for the first time. I thought it was brilliant. So
Yeah. But, you think back to maybe 360. What do we have in the 360 in the first 6 months? You had Elder Scrolls, didn't you? I remember that. That was you had Oblivion.
Viva Pinata.
Zero. Oh, even was Gears Holiday or was that May? I can't remember.
I think Gears might have been in the first. Maybe no, it was the next year.
Was it Forza Motorsport 2?
It could be.
Yeah, Gears was November. Sorry. Yeah.
And Xbox One was Titanfall. That happened in the first 6 months, didn't it?
Xbox One was great. It had Titanfall, Zoo Tycoon, Rise,
yes,
Scream,
Dead Rising 3,
Sunset, Dead Rising 3. Yeah. Let me put it this way: I think Xbox is sort of in a similar position to where PS4 was last gen. They've got the cheaper console now. They've got the better console in terms of power and ecosystem and all that. They have the more consumer-friendly approach, but they don't quite have the games right now. Now, the thing about PlayStation is, for them at least, they had Knack, they had Drive Club after a year, they had Killzone Shadowfall, and they had Infamous Second Son. And I don't think those are necessarily regarded as great games. They were still pretty big AAA games. Now, said if we can get Flight Sim, if we can get and Psychonauts right now, and stuff like The Medium, that's an okay first year. And then by holiday, we're looking at Halo and maybe even Forza Horizon 5 and or Starfield, which would be huge if they can get that done.
Yeah. Good. Okay. Brilliant, gentlemen. Thank you very much today. Now, what are we looking forward to next week? Richard?
Mass Effect Legendary Edition out tomorrow. Looking forward to that. Just as everything's opening back up for us, there's a game coming out that I'm going to be spending hundreds of hours playing.
Hundreds of hours? It's hundreds of hours. If you do all three. Wow. Good luck. William, what about you? What are you looking forward
to? Being a week closer to E3 at this point. I mean, just before I wrote this, we were supposed to lift the lockdown next week, or at least ease the restrictions. That's not happening. That's just been delayed another 2 weeks. I mean, look, our numbers are bad, but they're getting a lot better. I was hoping I would at least be able to get coffee with a friend, or God forbid, play around golf. But those seem to be too much for the government right now. So, despite doctors telling them it's totally okay, so I don't know. This isn't my political soapbox. I'm all in favor of the lockdowns, to stop the spread and everything. It's been on and off lockdowns for a year and a half here, and the restaurants and theaters and all those have been closed for coming up on 7-8 months now. So it's just eventually.
Yeah.
E3's coming.
E3's coming.
We gotta get a Nintendo show, a Microsoft show, a Ubisoft show. It'll all work out.
It'll work out. What am I looking for? I've got nothing to do. I'm going to work next week for the first time. I'm doing a theatre show, so I'm back rehearsing in a space with people, which will be good. And it's probably going to knacker me out, but that'll be good. And that's it, really. Yeah. FA Cup this weekend, football fans. That's going to be good. But where can we find you, Rich, if we want to chat to you?
I'll be on Twitter at Dobbo1912.
Brilliant. And William, where can we find you?
You can find me at William J. Caruana on Twitter. Now, that said, I have been sort of keeping off Twitter for a bit these days, all the doom scrolling and stuff. But if you send me a message or a PM, I'll get back to you in a day or two.
Great. And you can find me at GB Briley on Twitter and Twitch. But for now, gentlemen, thank you very much. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
You've been listening to the official podcast of TheXboxHub.com. We had found all the notes of this show at www.thexboxhub.com/podcast. You can also check out our social feeds on Instagram and Twitter at The Xbox Hub and search for The Xbox Hub on Facebook.